His backhand slap was legendary and changed American cinema. His Oscar win was the first of its kind and a decisive victory for the culture. His daring midnight run, escaping the KKK and smuggling $70,000 cash to freedom fighters in hostile Alabama was a scene straight out of the movies he was so well known for. Welcome to Cinemance. Today, I want to talk about one of the most commanding actors in cinema history. Someone whose stage presence and scene authority was so strong, he was able to fool renowned Hollywood director Joseph L. Mankiewicz into giving him his first leading role in his first Hollywood film at the age of 22, lying that his actual age was 27. The actor I'm referring to is Sidney Poitier, and the movie in question, No Way Out, starring Richard Widmark and Linda Darnell. Sir Sidney was born 2 months premature in a Miami hospital in 1927. His Bahamian parents had arrived in Miami to sell tomatoes, but it was Sidney that arrived instead. He was so small, they placed him in a shoebox with cotton for warmth.
Who, when her son was born, weighing but 3 pounds, and a coffin had been prepared for him, went to a soothsayer in search of hope. The soothsayer told her not to worry. Her son would survive and travel to the corners of the earth and walk with kings.
The youngest of 7, back home in the Bahamas, Sidney grew up on the tiny Cat Island, a long, slender isle nestled in the central Bahamas. Remote, sun-bleached, and kissed by the endless blue of the Atlantic. To a young Sidney Poitier in the 1930s, it wasn't just an island, it was everything. There was no electricity, no cars, no movies. He famously didn't even see a mirror until age 10, and when he did, he was startled. He had never seen his own face, and later quoted, "I had no reason to believe I was inferior. I simply didn't know the rules that had already been written about me." Outside the island, a world was waiting that would focus on my color.
I never thought about what I looked like. I would only see what I saw. There was one white person on Carolina. When I got to Nassau, I saw other white people, but they were in the minority. Black people were 90% of the population.
When he was 15, he moved to Miami for more opportunity, and then a year later, moved to Harlem, arriving just after the Harlem Renaissance and just in time for the civil rights movement, of which he would be a prominent figure. This turned out to be a pivotal move in Poitier's life. He arrived in Harlem as a skinny teen, barely literate, with a thick accent and no formal acting training to speak of.
I had no friends, no family, no relations, no addresses. I knew no one. I am transfixed by the lights and the traffic and the people. It's incredible, absolutely incredible. So, in the window there's a sign that says, "Relief dishwasher wanted." When I finished the first night's work, I went to the bus station. I went to sleep in the toilet. Used to be pay toilets and it cost a nickel. And I got in, I put down the seat, I sat there, put my feet up against the door, and I would sleep.
It was there, in Harlem, where he would find his tribe. Within the small, modest walls of Harlem's YMCA, the American Negro Theater had been founded in 1940. It was an institution dedicated to giving black actors a space to play fully human characters, not just porters, servants, or comic relief. The Ant gave rise to some of the most iconic black talents in American history, including Ruby Dee, Ossie Davis, Earl Hyman, and Harry Belafonte. Sidney wanted to be a part of it. His first audition at the theater was a complete disaster.
Why don't you just go out? And he's marching me to the door. He's got my collar back here. He said, "Just get out of here and stop wasting people's time." He opened the door, pushed me out.
Sidney realized he needed training and negotiated janitorial work in exchange for rehearsal time.
"I will do the janitor work for you in exchange for letting me study here." And she looked at me in a peculiar way. She said, "You would do that?" I said, "Yes, I would do that."
His dedication was eventually noticed, and he was cast as Harry Belafonte's understudy, who Sidney would also become lifelong friends with. Belafonte even said, "Sidney and I were in the trenches together. We were soldiers in the same army, fighting for our image, our dignity, our future."
I have decided that I must hitch my wagon to Sidney's star and be led to great celestial experiences. And
You could cut it with a knife.
Poitier's thick Bahamian accent was a barrier, and the only work he could get was as a dishwasher.
A line like, I'm going home. When I was a child, we would say, I gwine home. I was told that I had to get rid of it if I wanted to be an actor. So I got rid of it myself. I bought a radio for $14.
Sidney would wash dishes by day, and at night, he would mimic the inflection of newscasters and radio personalities. Then, he would read the newspaper out loud to himself over and over again, beginning to create that signature tonality and delivery he was so famous for. Sound American, he told himself. Don't let them hear the island in you. After a string of successful Broadway performances, he was chosen personally by director Joseph L. Mankiewicz from a short list of finalists for the role of Dr. Luther Brooks in Mankiewicz's 1950 noir thriller, No Way Out. Sidney's first shot at Hollywood, and fun fact, No Way Out is also the first film poster designed by Saul Bass, whose graphic work would go on to define 50s and 60s Hollywood. Mankiewicz, coming off an Oscar win for Letter to Three Wives, recognized talent and immediately noticed Poitier's, as he put it, emotional intensity and grace. This marked one of the most significant castings in cinema history. Sidney's portrayal of the Doctor confronted racism head-on and set a new standard for black representation in Hollywood.
You'll have to help me.
To do what?
Whatever I can to keep him alive.
Grace, dignity, resilience. His focused eyes and measured movement reveal a deep, controlled intensity and emotional clarity.
Don't you think I'd like to? Don't you think I'd like to put the rest of these bullets through his head?
Then go ahead.
I can't.
Why not?
Because I've got to live too.
Poitier's acting technique was a mix of classical stage training and conscious, ethical performance.
Look, he's sick. He's crazy. He's everything you said. But I can't kill a man just because he hates me.
Every word has a meaning. When we put words together, if we don't express what the meaning is behind this particular bunch of words as actors, behind it may be one point of view, or it may be a combination of points of views. The audience hearing these would expect to see them exemplified in the behavior of the actor.
Although method acting was just beginning to take hold in America, Sidney was not a student of method. His training was practical, and so was his delivery, as it was designed to elevate the black identity. He once said, "I had a responsibility to myself, to my family, to my race, to be respectful of the opportunity I was given and represent it with integrity."
And the kind of pressure that the man must have been under, knowing that he was the singular black male in film doing significant work.
Every single African-American actor and every actor of decency owes Mr. Poitier 10,000 thanks, 100,000 thanks, a million thanks.
It's this process that gives him such a natural command and authority of a scene. And when he plays a character pushed to the edge, we can see this resilience in full display. Like in the scene from another of my personal favorite Poitier performances, 1961's A Raisin in the Sun. The story of a family pushed to the edge and a role in which Poitier originated on Broadway.
Usually you play in racial pictures. Why?
Usually I play in racial pictures because we live in a racial world, I guess. And art's responsibility is to reflect the world we live in.
I didn't make this world. It was handed to me exactly like it is.
Raisin in the Sun was maybe the third or fourth film I had seen with Sidney in it.
You tell me what man decides in this world what woman should wear pearls and what woman shouldn't. I tell you, I'm a man!
And to me, this performance really justified Sid the Kid's place in cinema history.
You just give us that money, and we won't come out there and dirty up your white folks' neighborhood. And I'll feel fine, fine, fine!
What a powerhouse performance. The way he portrays years of bottled up emotion and angst in one chaotic display, it's amazing to see. Not to mention the stunning supporting performance by the legend, Miss Ruby Dee, also an alumni of the American Negro Theater. Sidney's tortured outburst perfectly paints the visage of a man on the brink of rapture, with fiery passion, clinging to his dreams. A Raisin in the Sun is also notable as the first mainstream American film to portray a black family's inner life with depth, dignity, and realism. Not only that, but Lorraine Hansberry's 1959 Broadway play was the first play by a black woman produced on Broadway, making A Raisin in the Sun truly historic. The film's name itself comes from a poem by the great Langston Hughes titled Harlem. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? This movie changed what a black story could be on stage and then on screen. Denzel Washington even said, "I don't remember seeing anything more electric than Sidney in a Raisin in the Sun."
From the bottom of my heart, I thank you all. 40 years I've been chasing Sidney. They finally give it to me. What they do? They give it to him the same night.
I remember he stood up, and we were sort of from a distance. I guess it was passing the baton, I guess you'd say.
I'll always be following in your footsteps. There's nothing I would rather do, sir. Nothing I would rather do. God bless you.
The final performance I want to show is perhaps his most famous and has generated more than a few iconic moments. The film I'm referring to is, of course, In the Heat of the Night, a dark, sweltering crime drama involving murder and deceit in a small Mississippi town. It's Poitier going toe-to-toe with the Southern Gothic hate of rural America, and alongside a truly nuanced performance from Rod Steiger, this film was a cinematic gut punch at the time.
In the Heat of the Night, which confronted racial problem in the country in such a focused way that the relationship between he and Rod Steiger and in that film had tremendous impact.
Was Mr. Colbert ever in this greenhouse, say last night about midnight?
Poitier delivers his performance with emotional precision and simmering restraint. Only when necessary do we see the righteous fury and deserved anger explode from Poitier, culminating in a moment of intense and passionate catharsis. Released at the height of the civil rights movement in 1967, and just 2 months after race riots in Newark and Detroit, the film didn't just break ground, it slapped the out of it.
You're pretty sure of yourself, ain't you, Virgil? Virgil, that's a funny name for a boy that comes from Philadelphia. What do they call you up there?
They call me Mr. Tibbs.
His famous line, "They call me Mr. Tibbs," is ranked by the American Film Institute as number 16 on a list of 100 greatest movie quotes. What could have been a simple line was elevated to a cultural rallying cry, thanks to Sidney's emotional and energetic delivery. His performance was a statement of cultural power and defiance. It was the first time a black character had ever slapped a white character on screen.
Black folks went crazy, because they never seen that before. Wow, bam! That never happened on the screen before.
You know what we all did.
Yeah!
Poitier insisted the slap remain in the film despite studios' fears. It was a non-negotiable for him. "The white man slapped me, and I slapped him back. That moment changed everything," said Poitier.
I said, if he slaps me, I'm going to slap him back. You will put on paper that the studio agrees that the film will be shown nowhere in the world with me standing there taking the slap.
God, you had this written into the contract?
That's right.
The film took home 5 Oscar wins, including Best Picture, but somehow Sidney didn't even receive a Best Actor nomination. A controversial snub to this day.
You're implying that there was something wrong by my not being nominated.
Well, there seems to be a lot of talk in the industry. Apparently no one has really heard from you. What are your feelings about that?
I was rather delighted not to have to sit in that auditorium tonight and wind up one of the 4 losers.
His performance may be the best example of dignity, controlled rage, and silent defiance. His movements are disciplined, chin up, shoulder square, eyes focused. The cadence of his delivery is measured and eloquent, as opposed to the careless southern drawls that hurl insults at him throughout the film. To this day, Poitier's performance in The Heat of the Night remains a towering example of power through restraint. It's timeless, urgent, and unshakably human.
If you've looked at a person through a camera lens as often as I've looked at Sidney Poitier, you know, no matter what the role, no matter how he played it, when I looked through that lens, I saw the man. He dominated that lens.
Poitier would continue breaking barriers throughout his life and made it a point to never play villains, stereotypes, or second-class roles. Yes, Sidney Poitier never once played a bad guy. Poitier said, "I felt as if I were representing 18 million people with every move I made. At a time When Hollywood routinely offered demeaning parts to black actors, Poitier refused to compromise, turning down any role that didn't align with his values. He was the first black man to win Best Actor with Lilies of the Field in 1963.
This was before we had a Civil Rights Act. Can you imagine the shock in that room? Can you imagine just the sheer joy, magic, and something utterly divine happening in that moment that surpassed everything else that was happening in the culture?
Mr. Poitier is the first Negro to win such a high award, and the announcement is received warmly by the audience.
It was a turning point, truly a turning point in a Hollywood that had chosen to articulate us, black people, as entirely different than we were.
Because it is a long journey to this moment, I am naturally indebted to countless numbers of people.
He was the great black hope for me. In that moment, he became the great black hope for me. I remember distinctly feeling that if this could happen to a colored man, I wonder what could happen to me.
Later, he tried his hand at directing, which gave him a chance to further elevate black voices in Hollywood.
You really put to work a lot of black people behind the scenes. It's not just that we've got an enormously talented black cast, but...
Yeah, we have 1,300 black people working on the film, atmosphere people, technicians and all that. 1,276 are my relatives.
Good for them.
Outside of Hollywood, in March of 1965, as the blood of innocent protesters still dried on the pavement of Selma's Edmund Pettus Bridge, the call for support from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. went out. Harry Belafonte, deeply entrenched in the civil rights movement, responded immediately, raising over $70,000 in cash from friends and allies in Hollywood. Today, that $70K would be equal to $684,000. This wasn't a donation to be wired or mailed. It had to be delivered hand to hand, directly to the movement on the ground. And for that, Belafonte turned to a man he trusted with his life, Sidney Poitier. The two friends, icons of stage and screen, flew into Montgomery, Alabama, knowing full well they were entering hostile territory. In the rural backroads between Montgomery and Selma, they were followed, harassed, and threatened by white supremacists who'd caught wind of their presence. The danger was real, but so was their mission.
We will treat anyone with great respect here in Mississippi. Anyone who comes here, as long as they do not disobey our laws.
Phone calls and threats was coming in by the day, by the night. They wanted to assassinate Belafonte Poitier.
I had assumed that with my association with Bobby Kennedy, that a phone call to the Justice Department telling them that I would be going and my whereabouts, we would be able to get federal protection. When we got there, absolutely no evidence of federal marshals or protection.
As we were getting into the car, somebody said, "There they are."
Headlights went up. We saw that they were Ku Klux Klanners.
We moved out, and as the trucks tried to catch us, the third car would move over to block any attempt to pass.
Armed members of the SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, had to escort them under the cover of night to ensure the money reached Selma safely. It wasn't just about the cash. It was about courage, about showing up. Sidney didn't even make a speech. He didn't pose for cameras. He stood in solidarity, shoulder to shoulder with Dr. King as he delivered his how long, not long speech. Quietly, Sidney defied a system built to keep men like him silent. Years later, Belafonte would recall how the image of Sidney risking everything without hesitation would stay with him forever. "We knew it was dangerous," Poitier said later, "but we also knew what was at stake."
The urgency that was evident today has been bubbling in me personally for most of these years, at least most of the years I came into adulthood. I became interested in the civil rights struggle out of a necessity to survive. And I think my interest started many years ago, never as intensely, however, as it exists today.
The world outside the US also took notice. Upon being released from prison, Nelson Mandela said to Sidney Poitier, "I watched your films in prison. You taught us we were worthy. You made me proud." Sidney Poitier's legacy is that of possibilities.
I am filled with pride that you are here. I am sure you have, like me, discovered it was never impossible. It was just harder. It is gratifying to see, and may the world take note, that you didn't let harder stop you. Those of us who go before you glance back with satisfaction and leave you with a simple trust. Be true to yourselves and be useful to the journey.
He was a symbol of what could happen when one takes a stand and embodies courage. Every performance was a declaration that Black lives were worthy of respect, complexity, and honor on the screen. And Sidney Poitier truly changed cinema forever.
Excuse me?
What can one wish to you for your immediate future?
For my immediate future? What I would wish to see in my immediate future? I would wish to see a world at peace.